Well, Susan and Jane, thanks for coming. My name is Marggie. Last name is Moertl. You don't have to remember that, but I love it because I use a lot of high frequency oils, and Moertl oil is one of my favorites that works on the soul. So that's my last name. But thank you for coming. I am a former hospice nurse and always loved working with the dying from the first time I entered into that, and knew that I had found what I loved. And yet working within competency-based regulatory medicine was always hard for me because there's so many demands on your time and focus. You're carrying 15 patients, you have umpteen million voicemails interrupting your time with people. And so over the years, I figured out what I wanted to do, and I developed my own business, and at first called myself an end-of-life consultant. There we go. And that was about the time where the end of the death doula programs in America, or we didn't call them death doulas, we called them end-of-life doulas, they were really coming into being. And so as I set up my own business, I reached out to two of those trainers who were developing their programs, who really guided me in setting up my business. And I ended up working with one of those programs for many years as a trainer for doulas. And I found what I love. It's being a end-of-life doula is a non-medical position. I never, ever give medications in my role now. And I like that because I am free to be with the patient and the family or the loved ones without any interruption. Whatever they need is what we do, and that's the definition of doula. You go without an agenda. You attend to what's needed in the moment. Sometimes that's talking about the weather and chatting about Christmas or whatever, but most often I'm holding deep spiritual space for both family members and the dying person to find that space to dare to voice their deep fears, their deep questions, their concerns, and that's what I love. And we talked before about the spiritual part of why I call myself a spiritual life doula. Well, first of all, I went from end-of-life doula to life doula because in today's world, people don't get referred to hospice or end-of-life care until the last 10 to 14 days of life. They are under treatment until the doctors can do no more, and then they're referred to hospice. And frankly, my personal opinion, having worked in hospice for 25 years in and out of that robs hospice of any of the beauty of their program, because hospice was intended to minister to people when they finally said, no more, I'm ready to just allow my body to decline at its own rate. And in that then, they have plenty of time and space to talk to family, to explore their feelings, to meet with the hospice team, including the chaplains and social workers and all of that, and really prepare so that when that final day came, they were spiritually prepared. It's really a spiritual walk. You're going from a physical body, a spirit within, to releasing that spirit into the next world. So it is a spiritual walk, and that's all there is to it. So what I have done now is I'm studying with the soul midwives in the UK. I've done the spiritual part of their program, and I'm planning to do the final one, which is the holistic. I understand holistic care, but I want to be certified as a soul midwife. I think their program is exemplary, but that's just, my personal thing. So what I do now is to make sure that my clients, I love when they reach out to me when that decline starts. My most recent client was someone that I knew, that family I had worked with before on, in different ways. And I was so glad they reached out to me. As soon as there was you could see, this person was starting to really decline and question, am I dying? What's going on? Seeking diagnosis and stuff. And so we worked together for 5 months total. And during that time, I visited every week, sometimes more often, always available by phone calls or emails, to the dying person, but also to the family, because really the family really needs the support. They have all of the POA responsibilities and coordination and dealing with other family members and making sure the finances, there's just tons of stuff. So in that process recently, as the person came into more of the active dying stage, then I started to visit every day for as long as I was needed. Usually it was an hour or two, but the final couple days I was there most of the time, and really was able to support both the patient and his family and stuff. So I want to tell you we're being videotaped, so realize that anything that you ask will be part of that at this point. So if if you're talking about your personal experiences, that will happen. And we have agreed that later we would disconnect that, and if there's more, private discussions.
So, when you were working with that person, did they have hospice also?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, they absolutely. An end-of-life doula used to be something new and novel, but in 2018, the Hospice and Palliative Care Organization, which is the regulatory body for hospice and palliative care medicine in America, worked with the doula trainers, and they developed a platform within their thing. Doulas do not want to become part of regulatory medicine and get insurance, because somebody else then is telling you what to do and how to do it and when to do it. But the Hospice and Palliative Care Organization recognized the need, because I love hospice. I have nothing but praise for hospice, but they are very burdened. I now have 1 or 2 clients at a time. As a nurse, I had 13 to 15, sometimes more. So while you're at a visit, you're getting buzzed and beeped and all that, and that's just the nature of medicine. I'm not criticizing any particular organization, but the Hospice and Palliative Care Organization realized the need for someone consistent, and truly the patient satisfaction scores have gone up immensely when there's a doula involved, because there's one person who is always available and comes and stays, whereas the hospice team, usually it's the same nurse, but not always. That nurse has a day off, has to be on call, and they send other people, and that's what they do, and so it's a perfect marriage to have both, and it's wonderful to be allowed in, and having hospices reaching out now, which is a great gift for my work, but also to the people who are facing end of life. So I want to first explain a little bit about what hospice is. And palliative care is the first step into allowing the palliative care doctors not to have to treat people aggressively. This is modern medicine. There's regulations and rules, and if you're treating people aggressively, you can only use opioids to this frequency, and it's very minimal. And so when you get into palliative care, they have more leniency for if patients say, no, yes, I want that treatment, no, I don't. And then if they're having pain, they can be treated a little more effectively. Then after that, when a person gets to a point that the rules for hospice admission, first of all, they have to be certified by a medical team that they are appropriate, and there's a whole looking at the medical record for testing and those kinds of things. But the basic rule is, if your disease is allowed to continue without treatment, it is expected to not be more than 6 months of life expectancy. Now, certainly I had patients on hospice for years, but they met that qualification over and over, but they just didn't pass, But usually it's 6 months or less, and which is appropriate, because that's the intense time of that spiritual preparation, loads of physical changes, and the hospice team are experts at symptom management. So hospice is not a place, it is not a residence, it's not an assisted living, it is the team. It's a medical team. You have a medical director, you have RNs, you have social workers, chaplains, nursing assistants that help in the home or wherever you live. And then there's other people within the structure, like bereavement coordinators, volunteer coordinators, and many other things like that. But that team is what Medicare or insurance pays for. But they go to you wherever you live. They don't pay your mortgage payment or your rent, and they don't pay an assisted living or nursing facility, and they don't pay a residence. You know, like Grace has that beautiful residence in Fitchburg. That's private pay, always. It's never included in your Medicare. But it is always, the team is paid for 100% under Medicare rules. Most insurances abide by that, but that's where you get into some stuff. I don't know all those rules, and it's not mine to figure out. But they also, hospice then is required to cover all of the medications for your comfort related to your terminal diagnosis. So for example, if you have a cancer diagnosis, but you're also a diabetic, Medicare or insurance pays for everything related to that cancer, pain medicine, if you're constipated, you know, if you have other issues related to your diagnosis, but nothing related to that diabetes, then you would pay for that how you normally do. And insurance and Medicare understand that. It's all divvied up and figured out when you get into it. But they also pay for supplies. So incontinence supplies to a degree, skin barriers, you know, whatever you would need for your diagnosis. And usually it's just related to your personal care. But there are other supplies. They provide wheelchairs and walkers, oxygen, commodes, those kinds of things. And that's part of the Medicare benefit for hospice. And Medicare is where hospice was designed, and then it had, because it was part of Medicare, then insurance companies provide it according to their rules, and that does vary. So, questions about that part of it? No. How it proceeds is your family member or your physician would make a call to hospice, say, or to the doctor and say, we want to consider hospice now. And then they would get a medical order for hospice. And the hospice team then would start researching the case, getting the medical records, and they have like admission nurses or social workers that go out and meet with the family and the person to explain what they would be doing, who they are, how this works, and to get a visual picture of the situation. And then if you do qualify, then you would get admitted to hospice according to more rules. But this is where being a nurse gets in the way. Usually, if you're in the hospital and all this is going on, they admit you once you get home, because Medicare doesn't cover hospitalization. You know what I mean? So, but usually when you go home, or if you have to go to an assisted living to get the care you need, when you get there, then the hospice team generally comes and does an admission. And in that, all of your medications and care needs and all of that are reviewed. And then that admission nurse or social worker goes back and sets up a care plan. And after that, then you would get visited by a social worker, chaplain, and the various other members of the team in time. You know, they are not there that first day. But it's a very, very busy and stressful for the family, because this is new, all these things are happening, supplies are being delivered to you if they're at home. I'll talk about home because that's the easiest. There's suddenly commodes and oxygen equipment are delivered to your home even if they're not needed, and many things like that. And those are wonderful things for hospice, but it's hard on families. This is huge upheaval. And that's why I say when our ill people are being referred to hospice in the last 10 to 14 days of life, that is just not okay with me. But it is the nature of how we do our medical work. So what I love is, like with my client that he just passed, the family reached out to me months earlier, so I was able to be a part of that whole thing. His admission to hospice I was involved in. I was allowed to coordinate my emails with the family and the hospice nurse so we could share information and things like that. My work is on a private contract, and that I set up with the family. I have just begun going to like a monthly subscription for that, and on a 3-tier, so people can choose realistically which of these 3 fees is the right one for you. If you can afford the highest, that helps the next person. If not, the low, whatever. But it's done that way now, which is new for me, and I think it works a lot better rather than one big amount of money at the beginning. And once that is in effect, then I start visiting, and whatever comes up with most people, it's making sure that that will is done and making sure that advanced directives are in place and making sure that the POAs not only have been chosen and that if it's activated, but also know what the patient wants before it's too late for that person to voice it. And so those things are right away, but also just to get to know, how does this family operate? It is my work. I am being invited into the most intimate time in a family's, and I take it very seriously. It is completely, every family is different, and especially at the end of life, my own families, I come from a big family of multiple ages, 20 years difference from oldest to youngest. I can tell you, when it was my parents' turn, we're all like little kids, like mommy loves me best, and that's typical, it's not quite as obvious, but there's all sorts of, well, why are you saying that? I think we should do this, and everybody's in their emotional silo, and that's exactly normal. And that's one of the things that I help with a lot, because I can listen to each member of the family and not insert my opinion, but just usually being listened to, or maybe explained why that needed to be, or whatever helps. But that's one of the things that I do. But also to, if a person has to go to a facility, to ease that in any way that I can. Sometimes it means seeing if extra help is available. I don't know. There's just endless things. So I'm a spiritual life doula, but I take care of the whole picture too. And so whatever that family needs is what I do. That's a lot of talking. Questions?
My mind wandered a bit when you were talking about something about payment.
Mm-hmm.
Now, were you talking about payment to you?
My payment? Yes.
Did you talk about that? Or?
I did. I have gone to now, I used to have one large payment and then it would cover the whole thing. And I really felt that was burdensome to people. Mm-hmm. And so I have started to send out a monthly subscription with 3 different payment choices available.
Okay, thanks.
So, yeah. Any other questions? And I don't want you to start talking about your private stuff while you're on the tape, but I want to know if you've had experience with these things in your families and things like that.
No, I have not personally, but I have several friends who are death doulas.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm wondering if what they do, it sounds like you might
Mm-hmm.
offer more in your services than they might, but I haven't had conversations.
I suspect we offer the same things. It's just that my focus is so much on the spirituality that I tend to literally manifest or draw those kind of people to me. But it's end-of-life care no matter what, so yeah. I used to train doulas, and so training doulas, that was the thing. The first question I would ask people is, what kind of doula do you want to be? And they'd say, what do you mean? I want to be an I said, now, everybody has their own niche, your personality. What is your, I've had some that were former, legal aides in offices. They love the advanced directives and stuff. They learned all the others too, but that's their focus. I had someone who, her whole family had been emergency room deaths, car accidents, heart attacks. So she said, I want to be an emergency room doula. There are many different things, and so we all learn the same things, all are certified in the same things, but you find your own path. That's all I can say. And you set up your business the way you want to. It's really wonderful.
And then how do you market other than by
No.
word of mouth?
Word of mouth.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I try to be out there on social media, but until somebody needs it, they're not looking for it. And it just has to be. It's usually. I just moved to this area 2.5 years ago, so it's been hard to get that word of mouth. I used to live in Door County for many, many years, and I was well known, so people would refer all the time. And so it's been a challenge, but that has changed now, so finally, which is nice, because it is a passion within me, and I want to share it. So.
Well, and it's a time in people's lives when it's, you know, somebody coming in who can kind of see things from a larger perspective. It is so needed because, like you said, it's such an emotional time for the family and the person who's making that transition.
Yeah. And when it's your loved one, it's sad and scary and all of that. And I can normalize it. Death is, yes, that she is dying, and that is normal. And what you're seeing in front of you is normal. And the fact that she's sleeping more doesn't mean she doesn't want to talk to you. That is to be expected, you know, so that's a big part of my job. And I never shrink from talking about it. I had a wonderful client that passed last summer that I started with in Door County. And when I moved, she agreed to stay with me, and I would do virtual and then visit periodically. Long story short, her young adult son was her primary caregiver. And so there were times when I visited when he would sit down and right in front of his mother, who was sick, ask, what will it be like when she dies? And he wanted to know specifically what's going to happen, what will it look like, and what will he do? And we had that conversation running right in front of the patient, but that's that family. They were very open and above board and stuff. And that was invaluable. That was the only time I said that to him, and he was good, you know. In fact, I visited the day before she passed, and I would have stayed, but he said, no, we've got it. He was really well prepared, you know, and they had a hospice team, you know, and they handled it. But he certainly let me know, and I talked to him several times during that period. So, yeah, each family is very unique.
Do you help the family then after if it's needed?
Always, yes. I love to be there when the person dies, but I'm finding 50% of my people don't really want me to there. They feel like they're ready, and with hospice support, they've had the conversations and that. But the other ones, I'm there and lead some bedside rituals and get people talking. And I love what I call a living wake, where the families at first are nervous and there's lots of banter, and I'll say, let's spend time remembering your dad or whatever and telling stories, and it's really very beautiful. But then when the person does pass, I'm certainly available to help in any way with celebration of life planning, eulogies. A lot of times we take care of that long before, you know, people are ready. But also always to be available to the family for the bereavement for as long as they need. Sometimes people want to talk to me weekly for a while, and then I don't hear from them again, and I do not reach out. Then I know that it's over. It's like I'm allowed in as an intimate member of this group just for a time, and that time is self-defined by each person. So.
And when you've been with people when they make that transition, have you experienced the spirit leaving the body?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I understand that's a beautiful experience.
Yeah, it's really incredible. And that's one of the things that I'm studying in depth with the soul midwives, because they are experts at teaching how that happens and using oils that are on the frequency of the soul and things like that. So I am learning those things from them and cherish it, you know, so, but that's new to me and it's new to our world here, you know, so.
Would somebody contact you before they contacted hospice if they knew they were going to get hospice?
Yeah, that would be the best.
Okay.
Or simultaneously or whatever. And again, I never am replacing hospice. chaplains and social workers do a lot of what I do, but I also do it, you know, and so it's like a team. And when the doulas were recognized within the medical plan of care in 2018, it was a long haul before anyone would really utilize this, but they do now, and so it's really, and then we share information. If a patient talks to me about something that they're really concerned about, I have a complete discussion with that person. But then I say, you know, if it's okay, I'm going to let your nurse know about that too, because they need to take care of it on their level. And so it's just like a give and take both ways, which is wonderful.
A lot of times people share very confidential things.
Oh, yes.
So how do you determine what is just between you and the person who's telling you?
I ask.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But are there certain things that you would be required to share with the
Well, it's not like they're confessing to terrible crimes or
No,
anything,
no.
you know. Even within families, there, you know, the ill person might talk about one family member and some animosity or childhood trauma and stuff. I just keep that to myself. That is no one's business. I will suggest, I said, have you mentioned that to your chaplain or whatever? And encourage it, but that's not mine to share. And certainly not to other family members, you know. And also, when the person passes and my time is nearing an end, I honor their need to now go back to their own boundaries, if you know what I mean. If you've ever had something hard happen in your life, the whole world knows all your troubles and all of that, and that's a good thing. We're vulnerable and we have family and friends and community members that are caring. But there comes a period where you want to seal that up. You know what I mean? Go back to your private life. And so I always honor that's important as that happens. So after a person passes, I stay in contact happily, but I do not do a lot of reaching out. I wait for calls. I had one woman whose husband died, and this was a few years ago. She used to call me almost every night, and I finally had to turn her into her own taking care of things a little bit. I wasn't blunt, but I said, oh yeah, you know, I really can't talk right now because, you know, I have a life too. I didn't say that, but, I suggest you do this and then we'll talk about it later, you know, and so you turn her back to her own power in life again, rather than leaning way too much.
Mm-hmm. You may or may not know, but are there support groups for like widows and widowers that might be helpful to like the one who's left behind to kind of start moving forward from where they are?
You know, I am fairly new to this area, but yes, there certainly are. Just while I was waiting, I was looking at the bulletin board in the back, and Grace and St. Croix and different ones have advertisements for support groups and things like that, yes. And a lot of that comes from hospice. I mentioned when the hospice team comes on board, there is a bereavement coordinator. That bereavement coordinator is pretty much in-house, but knows exactly what's going on in your case, because the hospice team has to meet. It's called an interdisciplinary care team meeting. I don't know what the current thing, it used to be you must staff a person every 2 weeks, and I think that's still true, but that might have changed. But the bereavement coordinator is part of that. So they always know what happened during that whole progression of disease to death, so that after the person dies, if there's anyone reaching out, you don't have to tell the whole sad story. They already know, you know, which is really a wonderful tool. Mm-hmm. And hospice always follows up during bereavement with mailings and things like that.
But to get hospice in the first place, you said you have to go through...
That's a medical order.
You have to go through a doctor.
Mm-hmm. You can call hospice and say, I want my dad to have hospice, and they could contact your doctor, but you're going to have to work with your physician, because the physician's the one that has to certify it. So, yeah. And you want to, I mean,
Sure.
that's your medical provider. And you're chained, usually you can keep your same physician, but not always. You know, I worked in a couple different areas in Wisconsin, and that is different in different places. But from what I have seen here in this area, you keep your own physician. But the medical, usually when you're on hospice, there's no reason to ever go out to an appointment. You have trained staff who, you know, talk to the doctors and get the orders that you need and things like that.
I have a question, but I'm not sure how to word it.
Excuse me, I want to get a swallow of water.
Oh, sure. So I know death is a scary topic to discuss, and people kind of just don't want to talk about it. So for people who are in that place of fear around dying, what sorts of things might you share with them to ease that fear of death?
Good question.
Knowing that I'm an energy healing practitioner, and I believe there's a spirit that leaves the physical body behind and goes on to that next adventure. Not everybody believes that. So I guess I'm curious, because some of my Reiki students are wanting to become death doulas, as they would call them. And for myself, I think it's a wonderful service to offer. But I myself need to know that I am in a good place around the whole dying process before I could be of service to somebody else.
Yeah.
Never having worked in a hospice, but yeah, just curious what sort of things you discuss to kind of help people get over that big
You're talking about
fear
the
hump.
person who's dying?
Mm-hmm.
Well, those are those deep, dark questions that we discuss over time. That's where I hold space. I do not fill it with chatter. Sometimes, like before Christmas, there was constant chatter, but I wasn't the one instigating it. I try to let it be a long pause, let people think about what they want to ask. Sometimes I can sense it and I'll ask. I also have been a healer for 30 years and stuff, so you can tell, but I'm not there to impose on there. A lot of times, the actual getting closer to death, people would, walking up to it, and these are for people I've worked with for a period of time, will say, no, I'm okay, I'm ready. But then when that ready starts, they get scared. And that's where I'll say, there's not a one of us that it doesn't have that will to live. If someone's holding you underwater, you're gonna fight like heck. And that's that same will to live. That's part of the human experience. And we talk about it. And then I do offer energy work or some anointing and things that can help with that. But I'm not afraid to address it, and I will mention it to people. I do find that a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people have childhood trauma around heaven and hell. I can stand here and tell you all about it, but I know I will have that same thing. I was raised in a very Catholic family. And so to recognize it and to address it, but usually that struggle is at the very final hours of life. And so when families will sit and say, I don't know, I've given permission for him to go, and I've said that we're going to be okay, why is he struggling? I think because I can't promise you, but I suspect that we all have these issues of really, am I worthy to let go and know that I'm going to be loved? Am I worthy to expect something good after this? How do I know I'm not going to hell? Even though in their waking, there's no belief in hell anymore, but it's there. So, yeah. But this is what I'm saying about spiritual preparation. You can't outrun being a human being, but you can help to address it to whatever level. I am going to be working with a group of shamans, and we're going to do a class. And my part, I think, but I'm planning to help people to define, how do you see the afterlife? We all see it differently. Is it pure energy? Is it a place? You know, and it doesn't matter what your answer is, but it matters to you what your answer is. And so the more that we can think about that in our very living before illness, and then when illness happens, illness does its own negative loop where you feel like you're bad and it's hard to rise up above that, you know. And so to prepare as mortal beings every day of our lives is a really good idea, you know. And so to know what your picture of end of life is going to be, it allows, it's not mine to fix, but to do some meditations, do, you know, support it in some other way. Years ago, one of my favorite stories is I had a, this is when I was still working in hospice, and so it was a long time ago. There was a home that I wasn't the primary nurse. I was called to, you know, like on call once in a while. And there was always a lot of chaos. It was just a really dysfunctional family, and so be it, you know, that's how families are. But the family would get me into the kitchen and say, I don't know, we can't feel peaceful. He doesn't believe in God, you know, how is, you know, and they were terrified for him. And I would talk to them, you know, and stuff, but then when he died, I was the nurse on call and called to the death. And I walked in, and that same person who was so worried said, oh my God, you should have been here. He suddenly sat up and said, Jesus, you're real. And he died. And I just laughed because what we need comes to us. And I'm not sure he needed that, but his family needed that. And so it was just a beautiful story that even for someone who absolutely had abandoned any God and was very bitter, you know, really negative, which is why there was so much chaos, it was solved. That's all I can say. So.
And it's my understanding too that it is important that the family be okay with the time coming, and if necessary, give permission to the patient, I'll call the patient, that it's okay to go, because if the family is not ready to let go, sometimes that holds that person in fear, isn't that right?
Yes, especially you see that in, I've had several young women with like ovarian cancer or breast cancer, and they have children at home. It is just excruciating deaths, and I don't blame them. I would hang on to the last. But usually I change it from giving permission, as though we're in charge of it, to whispering in that person's ear and saying, I'm going to miss you, I'm going to grieve, but I'm going to be okay, I promise you. And like for someone our age, our adult child said that I can either move in with them or that they will come once a week. To give that person real fundamental information that you really are going to be okay is very important. Or if there's younger children, I'm not talking little ones, but you know, teens, 20, to say for the spouse or the rest of the family, we got it, don't worry, I'm going to watch out for him. We will, you know, like Dad's dying, I promise that Uncle so-and-so is going to be there for the, you know, that's what people really need to know. The other part is they need to know that their life has held meaning. And that is one of the primary spiritual benchmarks for end of life, is knowing your life held meaning. Now, does that mean you have to have started a nonprofit and done all these great? No, but whatever it is for that person. A lot of people, just the fact that they're parents and that they have children, they feel like, okay, I did something meaningful, and that's wonderful. But too, that's the kind of stuff that we talk about in the weeks and months before, is what kinds of things, you know, and it's just casual conversations. But then at the end, remind them of all that they've offered to the world and to their loved ones and to the family, or in their work or in their service. This is really important to having a peaceful death. It's kind of that last piece. So
That makes sense.
Yeah. Covered a lot of territory.
Yeah.
So So how much training does a person need to become a doula?
Well, there's lots of different programs now. There still are the non-competency based, the kind, you know, that like the other doula trainers have developed, very certified, you know, excellent ones. Let me back up one second. I forgot to mention National End-of-Life Doula Alliance, which is when the Hospice and Palliative Care Organization certified doulas as part of the end-of-life team. They formulated a platform called National End-of-Life Doula Alliance that has all of our scope of practice, medical ethics, all sorts of things. And they also have doula directories and all of that. So now they offer a competency badge. It's not certification. Certification comes from your training program. But to be NIDA, what's the word, NIDA embraced, you know. Anyway, it's not a certification. There's a badge that you can put on your business cards or your website or whatever to show that you have passed, that you are knowledgeable about the important aspects of being an end-of-life doula. That allows hospices to use us with safety and also people, you know, and my first case that I got here was referred from someone in California because it was a family member here, you know, but she found my name on the NIDA doula directory and knew that I was competent. So that's, you don't have to be certified by a training program to have those qualifications, but usually you do. And so there are now some universities and medical schools that offer doula training, and it's very competency-based, very factual, and they're beautiful, and they all do the same things but in different ways. And there are Doula Givers is the one that I used to represent. There's so many new ones now, and each one has its own flavor. Just like I said, what kind of doula do you want to be? So if you're interested, then you need to look into that. I would say a doula training and certification, I would allow 18 months to 2 years for sure. It's not like you go to school for 18 months or 2 years. They will have you volunteering within hospice. There will be monthly online learnings and then homework and chat groups. You know, there's many, many different avenues to it because you can't learn it here. You have to experience it here. And so each thing starts to what I call percolate in you, you know, and come out differently, how you see things, how you interact with family members who are ill, you know, it's just a process. So I would say a good 18 months to 2 years. There's lots of good, I just completed, I used to coach some people who were looking to become doulas, to help them find the right place. And one that I worked with it was about 18 months, just completed her certification, so we're not working together anymore. But it was really wonderful to absolutely watch her blossom into this new person. You know, you change completely. That's all I can say. Because when you are a family member, you're a family member. Yes, you've been around and you see the sacredness of life, but your guts are falling out, you know, your heart is breaking, you're arguing with family or, you know, all that kind of stuff. And so to rise above it and to do it from beyond is really important, and that's what changes you.
Are you still training or coaching yourself?
I'm not doing coaching anymore. If someone would, no, I'm not training formally. However, it's a possibility that I might be doing some within one of the hospices, we'll see. But that is not my main function. But I'm a teacher at heart. Any other questions?
Do you help people, like a lot, sometimes people don't have like arrangements for after the passing. My husband and I have always thought we would choose cremation because I don't want to take up space in a box on the earth. I didn't realize that cremation is such a polluting thing. And do you help people find like more green, environmentally
Sure.
friendly?
Especially here, you've got 2 areas that have natural burial.
Really?
Yeah, green burial right in the Madison area, yeah. Which, living outside of this area, I always knew Madison did. They've become much more popular, yeah. Yeah, the cremation has gotten a bad rap. You know, pardon me, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. That's all I have to say, you know. Growing up, cremation was absolutely a no-no in my faith group. Now all faith groups embrace it because we need space, you know. So do what's right for you, you know. But there are 2 green burial places in the greater Madison area, and they're very natural and beautiful and very sacred area. It's nice.
Yeah, one of them is in Verona, right? Someone talked here about that one time.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I've been to, that might be Verona. Again, I'm new, so I don't know. I've been there, and it's really neat. The other one, they had a end-of-life networking event at a new one that's out in west of Middleton. So I know that one because I've been there. But the other one, too, has been here for many years. I can't even think of the name, but
Do you help people with things like that? If
Oh,
they
sure.
have, they're having, not everybody plans ahead,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and those are, I'm glad to see these things are becoming more popular because not everybody wants that old tradition. In fact, hardly anybody wants that traditional burial anymore and the embalming, and that's still a possibility, but I'm glad it's becoming less popular. So, yeah. And cremation is considerably less expensive, but by no means is it cheap, you know. So there are lots of choices of who you contract with. So there's lots of guidance that can be offered. Okay.
One of my favorite experiences is being with people when they die. It's just like nothing else. Can't explain it.
Think of when a baby is born. There's birth plans and the whole family is awaiting this beautiful soul coming into the world and all the joy. And when people leave, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. To see that person leave their body and go on to the next reality, it is the most sacred event. It
It's
is.
just like when you hear them take the last breath, it's like, oh.
And people always say, how do I know when so-and-so died? They're having periods of apnea where the breathing stops. They said, you will know. Because when that spirit is not animating the body, it's a body, not the person. That's all there is to it, you know. However, I am huge on treating that actual physical body as this comes from my Catholic background, but it is the temple of spirit, you know what I mean? It is so sacred, and to be treated as such, you know, and not hurried out to the funeral home, you know, just,
That's what they do anymore, I mean, that, isn't it?
yeah.
Hurry the whole thing along, and it's like, I
Not my clients.
heard that it was very much more sacred to even allow the body to lay in place for 2-3 days.
You can't usually stay in a hospital or a nursing home or really even at your home for 2 to 3. You could, but to not bury, not to cremate, and to remember that person. The body is empty. It takes 2 to 3 days. What really happens is the spirit leaves the body, the energy goes out through the crown, and then for about 3 days, the spirit and the soul unbind. The spirit is for this lifetime. That's the personality me, it's very sacred me, but it's not my eternal soul, if you know what I mean, the part that will live on through eternity. So they unbind over about 2 to 3 days. And I'd love to be nearer the person for as long as possible, but I can connect with that probably better from home, you know, and speak to them, guide them, talk to them, but make sure that that body is left where it is until they're. My recent person, we went back before the cremation, and you could see, even, you know, 3 days later, that empty body looked different. That's all there is to it. And so, yeah, and I think that this is the new thinking that's coming around. It's not here yet. But the funeral home was immensely helpful to this family in allowing all of that, you know. And also by law, you cannot cremate someone for, I think it is 3 days, or there's a period of time in case there would be any question about the you know, for the coroner and things like that. So the law kind of protects it, but it's for a different reason. To me, it's the sacredness that needs to be recognized. Well, thank you very much for coming. You've got my card and my little postcard, so if you know of anyone that would be interested in my services, please let them know. Please do. And if you have any questions, feel free to call me. My phone number's on both.
Okay, you should leave some here on the bulletin board.
Good idea. I'll do that.